Hey everyone, in this episode we'll be painting a landscape environment from scratch. We'll start with some simple line work and end up with the final image. I will also comment the process along the way, so stay tuned to see the end result. My name is Victor, I'm an illustrator and concept artist working for film and games, and I really hope you guys will enjoy this video and find it helpful. Alright, let's start. So initially I had this idea to paint a brighter daylight scene with maybe some characters on a journey towards some temple or castle, and as usual I start by defining the horizon line and then quickly proceed with some line work to describe the building, the focal area, try to compose the image by designing the environment, adding some trees and this sort of trails that the characters left behind in tall grass, which will kind of lead the viewer's eye towards the focal point. Now, as soon as you're done with the sketch, you can proceed by blocking in your main planes. For the foreground, I opted for a brighter, punchier color of the grass and overall darker background and middle ground. So far, not committing to any details, just wider brush strokes and mostly flat color, without describing the form too much. Now, easiest of course is to describe the lighting on the building, since the shape is essentially a few rectangles, and afterwards really moving on to the rest of the elements, trees and so on. Finishing with this sort of chimneys on the building and moving on to the trees. For now, without any form, just the silhouettes with one value. Keeping things really loose, trying to arrange them in an interesting way, framing the image on the sides with them, and maybe trying to create sort of a rhythm. Overall, if I wanted to add more depth to the image, I would have scattered the trees closer to the foreground and maybe even further away in the background. That would definitely be a good indication for distance and perspective. But for now I left them like this, kinda focused all the density towards the middle ground. Now I'm gonna spend a bit more time on the sky, the clouds. The main idea is to treat them like three-dimensional objects with planes and everything, and also probably best to work with a brush with softer edges and some texture to it. Any brush with this type of features will do the trick of getting that wispy, cloudy feeling going on. By the way, don't forget there is a free brush pack in the description with some of my most used brushes, so you can grab those and experiment. Also, if you want to understand the process even better, I'm dropping the unedited video with more commentary, the original Photoshop file and extra brushes on my Patreon. Supporting me there will tremendously help the channel, links are in the description. Thank you so much, and let's move on to the next step. Alright, so here I was assessing the image a little bit and I decided that there is not enough contrast between the middle ground and the foreground, so I've darkened the middle ground a bit, like added a different hue, kind of made it slightly warmer and darker, and I also decided to adjust the clouds a bit more, so I kind of lowered them down, and that kind of gave me a bit more space to work on the shape and the form, and also added this bit in the foreground to make the whole image look a bit more three-dimensional, a bit more depth to it. Getting back to the building, I will duplicate this simple shape to add some details under the roof. It's quite simple to do it this way and then just adjust it for perspective. Also starting to add more information on these walls, like texture difference, some value contrast, because we want to add more contrast to our focal point overall. You probably noticed that I'm not working for too long in one spot and trying to bounce around different areas that need attention. For example, now we'll start adding some light to the trees and overall keeping them quite simple, just two values and some edge variation. I'm adding right now some nuances, some accents, a bit more information to the building, just trying to make this area overall a bit more interesting. And I'm also thinking about the background. I noticed that right now it feels a bit like a cutout background because the edge is so sharp, and I'm gonna try and add some variation for the edges over there. Also add some different color variations and make sure that there is connection between the background and the sky. Alright, so now I had these three stripes that I added to the foreground in the beginning, sort of like trails from the characters, and eventually I've decided maybe it would be better if I kind of unify them, making a wider mark overall, because I thought that since those marks were a bit smaller, a bit narrower, they were kind of adding a bit of an unnecessary noise. So you can see me here, I removed two characters from the foreground, I left only one, and I kind of tried to unify that path, the trail that he left, make it a bit bigger, a bit more accentuated. So overall I think this might help to read the image a bit better instead of having smaller, narrower sort of marks. And you can see sometimes I'm checking on and off, make sure if it works better or not. I'm also adding some color variation and making sure that things are overall quite readable. Alright, so this is the final result. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the process and found it helpful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing, it helps a lot. Also, if you have any questions about the process, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one, coming soon.